All right, a new educational chess game. We're going to learn by playing, and I'll start with the king pawn. He also plays what's called the French defense. This is mainly to support the push of e5. So I take the center, and normally he'll play d5 against me. If there's a capture, he can recapture with the pawn, which will balance out the pawn structure. I'm going to choose the advanced variation. I'm entering enemy territory. The pawn on e5 controls the square f6 and the square d6, depriving the black knight and bishop of these squares. But as you can see, he's using the c5 lever to destroy d4. If I take, it will develop his piece. His bishop, he'd be more than happy. And if d4 is destroyed, e5 will become weak and come under attack. So I'm going to play c3 to reinforce this chain. And you see he plays knight c6, increasing the pressure on the d4 pawn. I play knight f3 to defend. He plays d6, attacking the d4 pawn 3 times. And I have 3 defenders. But the goal of the French defense is to attack this pawn a 4th time, by bringing the knight from g8 to f5. There can be the route e7, then f5, or h6, then f5, to attack the pawn 4 times. And this pawn, I wouldn't be able to defend it with the bishop, because I would lose the pawn on b2, which the bishop will no longer defend. So here, what I'm going to do is play a 3. I'm preparing the b4 push, and you see he plays k7, he's ready to play f5. But here I play b4. He's going to take, of course, otherwise he'll lose his pawn. Otherwise, I'll be the one to take it from him. And now, when is he going to play? Knight f5. Since I no longer have the defense of the pawn on b2 secured, it's on b4. That's why I played a 3. The bishop can come to defend the pawn on d4, participate in the defense. He attacks 3 times, and I'll be able to defend 3 times. Either by putting the bishop on b2 or by putting the bishop on e3. You might say yes, but the bishop on e3, I could get captured by the knight. Yes, that's true, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because if he takes back, it's the f-pawn that recaptures and will come to solidify the d4 pawn. And he takes b4. What does he do? He sacrifices his knight here against 2 pawns. He wants to play bishop and check afterwards, but I'm able to play knight d2. I'm able to protect myself. So he's sacrificing a piece for 2 pawns, but that might not be enough for him. So I take. There you go, bishop b4, check. Knight d2 is the natural move to develop and block the check. I don't see how he's going to continue his attack. The pawn on d4 is still defended twice. He takes. I'm going to recapture with the queen. That's normal. I don't see the problem. It's not catastrophic for him in the sense that he did exchange his piece for 2 pawns, but it's not enough. Generally, you exchange a piece for 3 pawns, or else those 2 pawns need to have significant fighting value. But here, those 2 pawns are on a7 and b7. They are very far from having any influence in the fight. So I'm going to develop my bishop probably to d3. And of course, I'm preparing kingside castling, connecting my rooks. His bishop isn't doing much. And his pawns have no fighting value for now. But you have to be careful. If the queen moves, maybe his pawns will start to advance. So I'll have to make sure to block them. He prefers to retreat his knight to e7. Oh wow, he's about to face a terrible attack against his king right there. He's leaving me the opening on the long white diagonal. Well, it's not the biggest white diagonal, but it's still a nice white diagonal. And so I'm looking at it, bishop takes h7, check. You always have to look at the consequences of a check. King takes, knight g5, check, and the king can go back to safety. If I had my queen on a white square on d1 or e2, it could come to h5 to join the attack along with my knight. But for now, that's not the case. But since I haven't castled, I think I'm going to castle for now. I'll connect my rooks and shelter my king. And I'll take a closer look at his attacks on h7. But he plays f6. So here he wants to open the f-file. If I capture, he'll almost certainly recapture with the rook, but he'll give me this beautiful centralized square for my knight. This square is incredible. All right, I'll take on f6, or else he recaptures with the pawn to prevent my knight from coming in. Still, he weakens his king's shelter a bit. He recaptures with the rook. If I play bishop, g5, he can retreat to f7, defend his knight. It's actually quite an interesting move, by the way. Bishop g5, he comes to f7, and then knight e5. The knight will attack the rook and the bishop will attack the knight. Maybe that's how I'll proceed, finally. Bishop g5. I'm using my bishop on the black square. After all, it's the piece he no longer has. It's the piece he sacrificed on b4 earlier to get his 2 pawns. But as you can see, his 2 pawns aren't doing anything. So, with knight to e5, I attack his rook. On the other hand, I'm no longer defending the pawn on d4, but I'm not worried. He can't take the pawn on d4. His queen will be in the sights of mine, lined up against each other. I could play bishop takes h7 check and then take his queen afterwards. So I play knight to e5 and attack his rook. And he takes, look, he didn't see the queen to queen alignment, so bishop takes check, and I'm going to pick up his queen. He'll probably resign. I'm not even sure if I can take his queen right away. Actually, if I had h8, maybe I would do it. Knight takes rook, but he's going to come and take my bishop. He takes my bishop, I take his queen, and maybe now he'll resign. He doesn't resign, and he plays his knight to f5. He's attacking my queen. What am I going to do with my queen? I can't go give him check because the knight will take me. Well, here, I think I'm just going to play queen g4. I'm going to shift over to g4 and get ready. Queen h5. I'm also threatening to take his rook. He saves his rook. So queen h5 check. He'll probably go hide on g8. I don't know if I have anything better. I don't see it. I'm going to play queen h5 check. He can also put the knight. We'll see. He prefers to go hide on g8. And now I don't see how to checkmate him quickly. Maybe involve my rook in the fight. Rook a3, rook h3. A path along the third rank so that my rook can support my queen's arrival on h8. And then that'll be mate, because the knight deprives the king of its escape square. So I play rook to a3. I don't have much time left, but it's a 5-minute game, plus 3 seconds per move. There's that little increment of time. So here, the idea is to play rook h3, sliding my rook. And after queen, h8 mate with the knight, which deprives the king of its escape square. It's the most direct mating attack I've seen. He plays the knight to h6. He wants to close things off. But here, we'll play bishop takes h6. Then we capture, and then queen to g6 check. Maybe even rook to g3 check, actually. And after that, we're going to checkmate him. He plays rook to f5. He's attacking the queen. But queen check. He's going to go back to f8. But queen to g6. By the way, I think I'm going to play that. Queen g6 instead here. I'm threatening. Queen g7, mate. The kiss of death, mate. Supported by my bishop, my queen will be facing his king, which is backed up against the edge of the board and won't be able to escape. And if I rook f7, the knight can take anyway. He's trying to escape. Not bad. I don't know whether I should take with the bishop or the queen. All right, I'll take with the queen. And here I can't get in because his rook is there. His rook is still bothering me. Let's try to eliminate that rook. I'm going to play rook f3. I'm going to try to get rid of that rook. Because if the rook isn't there, queen f8 is mate. The knight once again deprives the king of any escape. So I recapture with the pawn to leave the knight controlling the d7 square, and I threaten. Queen f8, mate. He escapes right away. I don't have mate right away. Ah, yes, bishop g5, that's going to be good. The queen controls, and then I mate him on f7 with my queen. The knight protects the queen attacks the queen traps, and the bishop finishes the job. All right, new game. I have white. Once again, I'm going to play e4. The pawn king. Still the pawn king. In this video, my opponent plays d5, the Scandinavian defense. I take. In the French defense, the pawn is on e6 to recapture on d5 in case of an exchange. Here, he is forced to recapture with the queen. And recapturing with the queen, that's exposing his queen to attacks from my knight. So I bring out my knight with what is called a tempo gain. That is to say, I gain a developing move, since he moves his queen, and it's still my turn to play. And here I put my pawn in the center. I know my knight is pinned, but we can play bishop to either side and later shift the attack onto his queen. But now he plays c5, so I'm going to see what he plays anyway. He plays c5, he can recapture with the queen, but I can still develop a piece while gaining a tempo by attacking his queen. That's what I'm going to do, actually. And now bishop e3. I have two pieces developed, I'm attacking his queen, and it's still my move afterwards. For now, his queen is being harassed. It moves to c7. We can still attack this queen with moves like knight d5 or knight b5. But we have to consider, is it still interesting for me if I play knight b5? If the queen comes back to check me again, my knight is protected by my bishop, so I can play a move like c3 to block the attack. But then he can push back my knight and play a 6 maybe. The pawn on c3 could help me play b4 and attack his queen. His queen, which is missing 2 squares, doesn't have many of them. It has to control the square c7 so that my knight doesn't get onto that square and make forks. So it should go back to d8. By the way, this would propose exchanging the queens on the file. I could exchange the queens and then do queenside castling. Check my rook attacking his king. That could still be interesting. Knight to d5 as well. That's interesting. Knight to d5. It's interesting because after queen a5 to e, I can play. Before, the knight protects the pawn and the queen then has to go back to d8. Here, there's no exchange of queens though, because my knight is in the way. I don't know which is best. I could also just keep developing, bring out the knight or bring out the bishop. But I think I'm going to play this move. Knight to b5, I want to try it out a bit here. I keep harassing his queen. Where is it going to go? It comes to c6. Now there are captures on a7 that could maybe be played. I regret not having played the knight to d5. Because if my knight were on d5 and not on b5, I could play. The brilliant move bishop b5, which attacks his queen and which pins him, you might say, but the queen would take my bishop. But then the knight would come to c7, making the king-queen fork, and actually that would even be check and mate. The knight would attack and the queen is stuck. I regret it. But, well, unfortunately now it is just too late. No, but maybe the best is to take his pawn anyway. All right, I'll take his pawn. I attack his queen. I attack his bishop. The bishop defends my knight, and I'm threatening. Bishop b5 anyway. The pin of his queen on the king. There are still a lot of threats. When I had the knight on b5, I could have played as well g4. It's funny, if the queen takes the rook, the knight would have come to c7 with checkmate. The knight attacking and the queen trapping. You might say he wouldn't be forced to take the rook if I play g4. But then I could play bishop to g2 and attack his queen. It's the same if the queen takes on g2, if I still had my knight on b5, knight to c7, once again mate. Maybe I could have played an idea like that. He plays queen to e6. So here he lets me take the bishop, but he takes back. It's not for free. I'm going to come to b5. Threatening the fork on c7. For now, he's only playing his queen. You see, he's a player who doesn't mobilize his forces. Look, knight to c7, the big fork attacks the king, attacks queen, attacks rook. But on top of that, knight to c7 threatens mate since the queen is trapped. That would be an incredible move, one of the strongest moves. Triple fork, royal fork attacking the king and queen, family fork attacking the rook, and on top of that with mate. But he plays knight to a6, putting an end to my hopes. The knight controls the square c7. You shouldn't push grandma into the nettles, he saw my idea. Now what can I play? I don't see anything here. I'll have to find a way to deflect his knight, but actually he's not going to move it. He's going to leave it there. If I play a move like b4, for example, he'll never come to take the pawn. Let's not kid ourselves. All right, let's continue developing. I can play knight to f3 or go to e2 to then jump to d4 or f4, attacking his queen again. That's what I'm going to do, actually. Knight e2, it's a somewhat crawling knight, but it threatens to redeploy more actively to d4 or f4. He plays bishop d7. He attacks my knight. And now knight f4 or knight d4, I don't know which is the best. All right, I'll play knight d4. That supports the other knight. I don't have much time left, but once again, this is a game where there's an increment. 3 seconds for each move. And his queen is still under attack. The number of moves he's wasted moving his queen in this opening. He comes to f5. I'm going to play here. Actually, I'm not really sure what to play here. Well, I think I'll just develop simply. Bishop e2, that unpins my bishop e3, which can now move. If he takes on b5, the bishop can recapture. There's no problem. Certainly the bishop d'ailleurs. That's going to attack the king. King, which will have a hard time moving. He plays a 6. All right, I'm going to do the castling. I'm developing quickly now. I can also try to put the bishop on f3 to attack the pawn on b7. He plays the rook to d8, a rook facing my queen. That could be a bit annoying. And I'm going to move my queen to c1, threatening bishop f4. I'm getting out of the line of sight with his rook, and I'm threatening bishop f4. Bishop, which could help later, maybe with my knight's entries. He plays knight to f6. I play bishop f4. The knight protects, the bishop, the other knight protects, the queen protects. Absolutely everything here is just barely protected and hanging by a thread in this incredibly delicate position of justesse. I am now facing a very critical situation where I only have a mere 11 seconds left on the clock to make my next move. I have to play very quickly now. He plays the queen there. Come on, bishop f3. Let's add. The bishop, it comes to protect. I put the rook, I attack his knight here. He comes to defend with f5. And now I play c4, I attack his queen, with the queen protecting my pawn. He's bound to crack at some point, this player. He's going to leave something behind. For now, he's defending. He's defending well. But now he's going to let go of the defense of the knight. His queen has to move. The knight won't be defended enough anymore. He counterattacks with the rook here, but I take his queen. If he takes, I take back, and in the end, I've won a rook. Everything is protected on my side. He takes here. His knight is pinned. All right, I play king to d3. His knight can't move. There's the king behind, and I'm threatening knight takes d5. But he also comes to pin me. So I'm going to play a3. I'm going to ask him the question. Here, he has to take my knight, otherwise he'll end up losing the pawn on d5 if the bishop retreats. If the bishop retreats to a5, I play b4. But why do I have so little time? I feel like I'm not getting my 3 seconds back. I talk too much, that's it. He takes, come on, I recapture with the rook. The knight can't take back, it's still pinned. But now he could take back, so I move aside. He might play bishop here to attack my rook, we'll see. He's going to make me retreat. No, I could play b3. The knight protects, by the way. He plays knight there. All right, I'll take this knight here. He has to recapture with the knight, otherwise he'll lose it. I play f3, I attack his knight. And now I've regained the few seconds I needed. He has a bishop on a white square. Listen, I'm going to avoid putting my pieces on white squares. Except for my rook, everything is on black squares. That way, I won't have any problems with his bishop on a white square. I'm going to try to get into c7 and e7 on the black squares with my 2 rooks. There, he left the knight, so thank you, I'll take it. And there we go, rook to c7 attacks the bishop. The other rook can come to e7, and then my 2 rooks will shave his mustache off on the 7th rank. The 7th rank is an interesting rank because you can attack pawns that can't be protected by other pawns. It's the only rank where pawns can't be protected by other pawns, you see. And now I'm threatening. Rook to g7 check, king to h8, rook to h7 check, king to g8. And the other rook comes to g7 with mate. That's what I call shaving the mustache when you take all the pawns on the 7th rank. And here, unfortunately, it's not easy for him. Even the rook can't really move. If it comes to d8, rook takes on g7 with check, and the rook is captured afterwards. Because here the rook on f8 will prevent the king from escaping. That's why mate is possible. So my opponent left the game, and the computer tells me that I can claim victory in a few seconds. There we go. I can claim victory. All right, a game where white are playing. e4, I'm going to play e5. Definitely, today is the theme of the king pawn. We've only seen positions with the king pawn. e4, e5. When I was playing as white, there was a French defense, then a Scandinavian defense, and now he plays nf3. He's attacking my pawn. So I'll defend with knight c6, classic. He plays bc4, he's attacking f7. I'll play bishop c5. Classic, we're in an Italian game, one of the most played openings in the world, with the bishop starting to target some pawns that are quite vulnerable. He plays d3, opening the diagonal for the other bishop to come out. And now I'm going to play knight f6. I'm not afraid of knight g5, even though it attacks the f7 pawn twice, because I'll be able to castle. And the rook will come to f8 to help my king defend the weak pawn, the f7 pawn. And after knight f6, if I play bishop g5, then yes, I'm pinned, but I'm able to play h6 afterwards to push back his bishop. And even if he retreats to h4, I can play g5. After all, I'm not obliged to do kingside castling. I can do queenside castling. I can advance the pawn, develop the bishop, bring out the queen, and then do queenside castling. That's why I'm going to play. Knight f6. I'm not afraid of either knight g5 or bishop g5 in reality. I know there are a lot of players who play h6, but he plays knight g5. The threat is serious. He's attacking knight f7 with the fork queen rook. But kingside castling, if he wants to take on f7, it's not to his advantage. In fact, he does it because he's going to win a pawn and a rook. That's 6 points. I'm going to win a knight and a bishop. That's also 6. Since the knight is 3, the bishop is 3, approximately. We agree. So 6 against 6. But he's trading 2 pieces that were active on his side for 2 pieces that weren't really doing much on mine. Well, 2 pieces, a rook and a pawn. And he thinks he's weakening my king, but in reality that's not true. There's no longer a white bishop on that square. He can't attack me. In fact, I can go back and shelter myself without any problem. He plays bishop g5. Well, I'm going to play d6 to free the other bishop. He takes. I'm really tempted to recapture with the queen. He'll play queen h5, check. I'll go to g8. He can come to e8 to check me, but I can go back to f8, blocked. And watch out, because at any moment, I'm threatening. Queen takes on f2 as soon as he stops checking me, supported by my bishop. It won't be mate because since the queen is no longer there, the king will be able to escape to d1. But it's not pleasant for him, especially since my bishop could continue the attack with fg4. So I recapture with the queen. That seems completely logical. Queen to h5, check. No, he doesn't do that. Queen to h5, check. He does castling. And here I'm going to play king to g8, I think, anyway. I'm going to shelter my king. His pawn on f is pinned. He can't move it. He plays c3 to prevent my knight from coming closer. He himself won't be able to play. d4, I lock the square too much. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 controls. So which piece do I actually have extra? The bishop on the white and black square. I have the pair of bishops. He has an extra rook, but I have 2 extra bishops. I need to get these bishops to play. So this bishop is playing well, but the other one not yet. I'm still looking at his ideas. He might want to play b4, chase my bishop, then play b5 to chase my knight. I'm going to play a5 here, simply to stabilize my pieces so I don't get caught. b4, b5, because the move c3 could support the b4 push. He plays knight to d2. If he comes to f3, maybe bishop to g4, that would be a great opportunity for me to activate my bishop on the white square by pinning his knight. But I need to find a move. In the meantime, maybe bishop to e6 to bring the rook to f8. All right, that's what I'm going to do. Too bad if he plays. Knight to f3, I would have lost the tempo playing. Bishop g4, but it would still be a good move, a very good move to play. Bishop g4. He plays h3, and now of course I'm looking at sacrifices. Bishop takes, pawn takes, but do I have a follow-up? No, because I don't have enough pieces to help me. You see, when you have the possibility to sacrifice a piece against a castling, what's important to know afterwards is whether you have greater offensive reinforcement than his defensive reinforcement. And here, that's not the case. Because I can go give a check with my queen, but he can bring his queen back, and I don't really have any other pieces that can come quickly. So it's not the right moment yet. On the other hand, I can play queen g5. That will threaten bishop takes h3. Or queen g6, because on queen g5, maybe a pawn to e3 will attack my queen right away. My queen. But maybe queen g6. If I play g3, queen takes g3. By the way, because the pawn on f2 is pinned, so I'm going to play a little move like queen for him, g6. I'm threatening bishop takes h3, the pawn is pinned. And after that, queen takes g2, mate. And at any moment, bring the rook back, by the way. And he plays queen f3. So it's the perfect moment to bring the rook back. I can't do it anymore. Bishop takes, the queen will take. But I bring the rook back. And except for my knight, all my pieces are attacking his castling. Look, they're coming into play. Queen g3, so queen takes. The pawn on f2 can't recapture because of the pin. It's terrible. And after bishop takes on h3, the pawn won't be able to recapture because of the pin. And queen takes on g2, checkmate. The attack is terrible. He plays d4. Well, you see, if I decide to capture his pawn on d4, then he can simply take my queen in return. So here, I'll definitely have to retreat with my queen. He'll take the bishop, he'll recover the bishop. But if I retreat to g5 with my queen, I attack his knight. On the other hand, if I retreat to g5, he'll play knight to f3, attacking my queen. But I will have recaptured everything with the knight. His pawn is pinned. So I'm going to play queen g5. If he takes my bishop, I'll take his knight. If knight hits f3, rook takes knight via pin. Since queen and king face off, pawn on g2 is pinned. He plays knight to b3. Alright, I'll play bishop takes h3, threatening queen takes g2, mate. The pins. He might play g3 now. There, he plays g3. I'm going to retreat my bishop to b6. I wish his pawn would move so that I could do it. Queen takes g3, the pawn on f2 is pinned, but it doesn't move. So first I'm going to chase his knight. And I still want to play it. Queen takes g3, taking advantage of the pin, but the pawn is in my way. So what I'm going to do is even sacrifice my knight. I sacrifice knight to open the diagonal. Bishop takes, I attack pawn on b2. Attacking pawn on f2 twice, threatening queen takes g3 as pawn on f2 is pinned. My bishop on the black square has tremendous activity. He plays rook to e2, so queen takes on g3, the pin, and we'll finish with queen to g2, mate. So of course, progress in chess is quite a slow process, just like in other activities, surtout quand on veut construire avec des bases saines. But I recommend you follow my videos too. Understand a bit of the logic behind games, the connection between openings and middle games, the link between the strategic planning phases and the tactical phases where you have to combine and ultimately win the game. Then you train yourself with tactical exercises in the playing zones. It's important to improve your tactical calculation and, of course, to gain experience by playing a lot. You will get frustrated. You will have defeats. Yes, but that's the fate of all players. All players who have made progress have gone through a multitude of lost games. It's inevitable. Even the world champion, Carlsen, has been checkmated on every squares of the board. What do you think? He got hit by fork everywhere. All the opening traps, we've all fallen for them. That's how you make progress. We suffer defeats, of course. We get caught by tactics. But little by little, we start to understand the danger a bit. And we become much more attentive. And afterwards, we're able ourselves to bring danger into the opponent's camp. Come on, I hope we'll make progress together. And I wish you wonderful adventures in chess. Leave me likes, comments, and share the video if you enjoyed it. All right, goodbye everyone.